Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Taylor Tuesday. This is always a fun time for me. I get a chance to see colleagues I don't always get to see often. I get a chance to see one of my dearest friends. We have more of a chat on this modality than we do in real life because we never have time. Either we're working at our jobs or giving back to our profession, one or the other, or doing bike rides for charity. I mean, who knows what we're doing? But anyway, I want to just welcome everybody tonight. Really pleased to have a dear friend here, Dr. Warren Windram. Warren is in practice in an orthopedic group in South Florida. He's going to talk to us a little bit about wound care. And of course, you all know my compadre in crime here, Dr. Mike King. I think we should all congratulate him. He just finished doing I believe, 60-mile bike ride on Saturday. He only needed 6 bags of IV fluid, 4 bananas, and 17 candy bars. But he survived. And Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you, let you tell everybody a little bit about Taylor, and then we'll let Warren get started and educate us on a little bit about wound care, which seems to be a conundrum with our colleagues with the abilities to get paid and utilizing good services that give us good outcomes for our patients.
Very good. Thank you. And it was only 3 bags of IV fluid, but I made it through. But anyway, so welcome everybody, and welcome to Taylor Tuesday. So just a reminder that these webinars are available on our website at www.taylormedical.com. So you can go back and recheck out all the great presentations we've had. I guess, Ira, it's been like 19 months now we've been doing this pretty routinely since COVID began. Hard to believe that's still going on, but still. Anyway, it's exciting to have you all. We know we have a lot of return people. And so remember that you can go back and watch these webinars. And I know that I've been going back and recycling a couple of things lately just to answer some questions with the great speakers that we have. And we're excited to have Warren with us tonight. So just remember that for those of you who are newbies, as they say in Peloton, there's an easy way to do this. And that's just find out what products, or get the list of the products you're using in your practice and put them down and send them to Carla and her team. And you can do that at admin@taylormedical.com. You can do it on Excel. You can do it in Word. But you need to list the products that you're looking for, the things you use in your office. And as Bob Geldof pounded on the table in Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm pounding the table to say, you got to do this. It's amazing the savings. We're looking at about 40% for your practice. And those of you who have high volumes of medical supplies, perhaps it could be even more. But we've been constantly adding new products to Taylor that you can get benefits for, rebates at the end of the year, and it's just been remarkable. Put your stuff together, build out that list, the vendors, the products, the SKU numbers if you have them, any kind of piece of information you can give. I would bet even photography would work if you took a picture of something and send it. Carla and her team, Siobhan and Ashley, are just phenomenal at pulling this data, and I think you'll be more than pleasantly surprised by participating with Taylor. So all the things that we talk about here contribute to the products that are available through Taylor, through the wonderful service of our great friends and speakers who are here. So if you haven't done it, pound on the table, get those numbers in, send them to Carla and the team now, and get part of Taylor. Ira, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Hey, Ira, you're muted.
Sorry,
there you go.
I wanted to tell you that one of the things we've been doing recently is, as we find new products that would benefit our patients, we've gone out to some of our vendors, some of our companies that do distribution chain, and have had them added to the formulary, as well as even some of the more common products that are used, but it helps people consolidate with their shopping. So, for example, I can tell you that Jeff and I had the opportunity to come across a new product called Smooth AF, which I have to tell you that from personal experience and after utilizing, I think is probably the best over-the-counter product for tinea pedis that I've ever seen. And it is now distributed by Medline. So it's something you can go on to either the Taylor portal, if you're ordering off the portal, or if you're ordering off Medline.com and you're capable of ordering Smooth AF. The other thing that I will tell you is that you can continue to order off the portal or directly with the IQ Aquinas brace, but that has also been added to the Medline portal. So as products are being added and as products are being found to be beneficial to our colleagues, we are getting them made available. Basically, one of the things I've been telling everybody is if you're going to, before you buy anything or before you do anything in your office, I would think that you should reach out to either Carla, Ashley, or Siobhan, and our new teammate, Jim, that has joined the team. Unfortunately, I'm very nervous because I was about to turn it over to Dr. Windram to take over and give the presentation, but apparently Dr. Windram has disappeared. Oh, I think I see Dr. Windram is returning. Let's see. Dr. Windram. Give me 1 second.
We had him.
Hi, Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to see if I can call Dr. Windram and see what's going on. If not,
there we go.
Dr. Windram, are you finished with all your technical difficulties? You are 100% frozen, Dr. Windram. No.
Damn it.
We have a solution. And here comes the one and only Dr. Warren Windram. Sorry, guys. Good evening,
That
everybody.
works.
All right, you guys can hear me, see me?
Yep, sounds good, Warren. Go for it.
All right, guys. Welcome to Taylor Tuesday. I'm excited to be here in regard to talking about managing biologics with wound care, particularly in the office setting. So let's get started. It'll be a brief introduction, but hopefully you guys will get a lot out of it. All right, let's just go over some statistics in regard to diabetes. That's pertinent to our talk tonight. As you see with the slide, every 7 seconds someone dies from diabetes. Every 20 seconds a lower limb is amputated. The lifetime risk of people with diabetes to develop a foot ulcer is about 34%. More than 50% of diabetic foot ulcers become infected. This is some things that we see every day in our practice. Diabetes contributes to approximately 80% of the $120,000 non-traumatic amputations performed yearly in the U.S. So diabetic foot ulcers double the mortality and heart attack risk while increasing risk for stroke by 40%. The relative 5-year mortality rate after limb amputation is about 70%. It is second only to lung cancer. That's pretty significant. And the insurers, particularly Medicare, they do see this. I mean, these are statistics that are out there, and they know when we admit a patient to the hospital for a diabetic foot infection, it's probably one of the most expensive things that are that's paid by the insurance company, particularly Medicare, and it's quite costly. So Medicare and most of the payers do recognize that that skin substitutes are extremely important in regard to treating these wounds cost effectively. Keep them out of the hospital, keep them out of the wound care center, keep them out of the surgical center, because when they go to those facilities, physicians really don't have the advantage of making any income. But in the office, it could be quite lucrative, as you can see from the comment slides. So, going back to some of the causes of leg ulcers, foot ulcers, we all know this. I mean, pretty basic: poor circulation, diabetes, lymphedema, smoking, hypertension, inflammatory diseases, and any type of medical conditions that increase the risk of leg and foot ulcers in the patients that we see. And going back to the economic impact on Medicare in regard to the treatment of diabetic foot ulcers, it's extremely costly. All right, diabetic foot ulcer patients are twice as costly to the U.S. Medicare system as those with diabetes alone. So a well-controlled diabetic, certainly a lot less costly to the system than an uncontrolled diabetic. And the ones that are uncontrolled usually wind up in our clinic. So the cost of diabetic foot ulcers is greater than that of 5 most costly forms of cancer, which is incredible when you hear this. But from treating these patients on a daily basis, I could see it. I mean, when patients are admitted to the hospital, there's consultants ordered, there's all kinds of ancillary studies ordered, and surgical time. So there's quite a bit of money being spent on diabetic foot ulcerations. So as you can see, some of the statistics in the U.S., a total of $176 billion is spent annually on direct costs of diabetes. As much as a third of that will be spent on lower extremity complications. $1 million is spent every 30 seconds on diabetic foot complications in the U.S. alone. Among patients with commercial insurance, this is an interesting slide, where among patients with commercial insurances, each dollar invested in care by a podiatrist results in $27 to $51 in savings for that healthcare system. And among Medicare eligible patients, each dollar invested in care by the podiatrist results in about a $9 to $13 cost savings. So all of these add up, and this comes back to my original comment that Medicare understands this. They understand the cost of treating diabetic foot wounds, and if we can keep them out of the wound care clinic, if we can keep them out of the surgical center, we can keep them out of the hospital, everyone's happy. All the payers are very happy in regard to that because it's going to save them a ton of money. So therefore, Medicare is very, very comfortable with approving skin substitutes because they know the benefit of it. We all know Medicare is very strict, right? So if it doesn't work, they're not going to do it. So the fact that it does work very well, that's why they allow it to happen. Because some of these, skin substitutes are quite expensive, and the insurance payers are paying for them because they know the alternative, going to the hospital, surgical center, wound care clinic, it's going to be exponentially more expensive to treat these wounds than if seen in your office setting. So that's where this whole thing comes around because, in the past, it's been extremely difficult. A lot of my colleagues express this concern to me all the time in regard to getting paid for doing proper wound care in the office. Because as we know, it requires 30 days of conservative care, whatever your conservative care regimen is. That is what you do best. So if when that fails in 30 days, 30 plus days, then skin substitutes are able to be used. So so that 30-day period, it's important to really document everything appropriately. And particularly when putting these skin substitutes on patients, documentation is extremely important in regard to, you know, why you're using it, you know, why did the conservative care fail, you know, have all the ancillary studies been done, vascular workup, infection workup. So all these need to be in your notes before you start popping these skin substitutes on patients. But just remember that the insurance company is kind of on your side with this because of the fact that it saves them a ton of money having you treat this patient in the office with better outcomes than sending the patient to the operating room and admitting them to the hospital. So, but even those cases that require admission to the hospital, you could certainly see these patients in your office post-operatively, and also you can maybe debride them in the operating room, get the infection under control, and then you can see them in your office for the application of skin substitutes. So that's very effective because, as we all know, when these patients leave the hospital, and if we are ordering home health services to do these wound care, dressing changes at home is a disaster. So I think in general, it's good for the patient, and it's also good for the physician as another income source. So, and just, you know, resorting back to these slides, you can see, you know, the amputation cost versus wound care cost. It's dramatic. Where the average cost of lower extremity amputations, it's really high. I mean, you could see hospital cost $30,000 to $60,000. Follow-up care costs as much. Total cost for a lower limb amputation is well over $100,000. So, and we know the average cost of wound care is, you know, between $10,000 and $20,000. Particularly when this modality is used in the office setting, it's a lot cheaper. So anything to avoid an amputation, obviously, because the cost of that is dramatic. So in terms of some challenges we see in the clinic in regard to treatment and applying these skin substitutes to these difficult to heal wounds, you know, most practitioners do experience the same issues. There's ever-changing insurance requirements and reimbursements, expensive cost of goods. So the practitioner does get a little concerned in regard to ordering a $1,200 skin substitute graft without knowing if reimbursement was an option. You know, the authorization process is extremely time consuming in regard to having your office staff tied up, trying to get authorizations for these skin substitutes in the office. You know, again, we want to try to avoid referring these patients to wound care clinics and to hospitals for the obvious reasons. Sometimes when somebody's reps come by and they offer skin substitutes in the office, there's no payment terms. There's a risk of no reimbursement. There's limited manufacturer relationships. That's important when we start discussing the benefits of total ancillary. That some reps may come by, you may be real comfortable using those skin subs in either the hospital or the wound care clinic, and that may carry over to your office. From my experience, what I've experienced was that, you know, a lot of these skin substitutes that they allow us to use on Medicare patients, they can't use on commercial patients. So, and then what happens, they wind up giving you the commercial patients for free. And that doesn't really sit well with me. I think that that's just, you know, just the way that they can get your business. So when you have a company that represents one skin substitute that comes into your office, they may not be on all the formularies for the payers. So that is a large problem, and that's where a lot of docs get kind of confused with ordering these because they see the reimbursement's not there or the authorization's not there, the payment's not there. But a lot of times the reps will throw it in, hey, doc, you ordered 2 Medicares this week. I'll throw in the Blue Cross Blue Shield for free. Don't worry about it. And I don't really think that's good practice. So we try to avoid putting ourselves in that position. So when you look at the clinical, impediments in the office, what we'll see is, docs feel that they're just not being compensated for services provided. There's the incorrect amount of units billed. There's confusion on that. Incorrect products billed. Chasing down invoices, missing graft logs. It can get complicated. Lack of the physician understanding the financial impact. Sometimes we get real busy in the clinic, and hey, just put the graft on. We'll worry about the billing later. That's not the proper way to do it. Particularly if the rep is there telling you, "Hey, use it. We'll get you reimbursed." That's not really the proper way to do it. And when you look at Total Ancillary company that's come up with a really innovative solution, their proprietary software that really tackles this issue. Remember that the first question that comes up are, so how is Total Ancillary getting paid on some of these skin substitutes? They usually get paid from the manufacturer side. They don't take money from your end. So that's important to realize, and to note. So pretty much, the whole Total Ancillary solution, you can see it on the slide in front of you. The doctor submits a very simple verification form. And that goes over the demographics, the type of insurance, the type of wound, all that is put on that form. That's sent to Total Ancillary. And then within a short period of time, 24 to 48 hours, they're going to get back to you. Total Ancillary staff is going to get back to you in regard to giving you a list of matches, which is the interesting part, a list of matches that corresponds to the payer. So there could be 2 or 3 types of grafts that the payer covers, and Total Ancillary will give you those choices. You being the physician, you will determine which one is best for that particular wound. So it kind of takes the guessing out, like what graft is covered by who, because Total Ancillary deals with many manufacturers. So they deal directly with the manufacturer, and they get paid from the manufacturer, again, not from your end. So after you submit the form, you get a list back from them, what's covered, what's not covered, what the margins would be on it, and then you make a decision what to do. Because they send you the summary page to the doctor. After they do their homework, they send you the summary page, what to expect. And then at that juncture, once you're happy with it and you pick a particular product that you like, then the doctor places the order. So, and then, Total Ancillary then, will then send you the product and do all of the authorizations from the insurance, the payer, and all that stuff. So pretty simple system, but takes the guessing out, and it takes the uncertainty, because some of these graft products can be very expensive. You don't want to get stuck with a $25,000 bill at the end of the month and have no reimbursement on it. So billing these yourself or billing them with one rep is really not the way to do things today. Total Ancillary has really solved that problem. So, and it's an excellent source of income. You're basically treating the patient with the best stuff that's out there, because they fail the conservative wound care, and you're saving money for the insurance company. You're making money on it. It's better for the patient. So it's just like, it's kind of like a new wave of wound care that a lot of docs in the past kind of shied away from due to the cost. So Total Ancillary has definitely come to our rescue for this. So, and basically, and again, what we've just been talking about, it does revolutionize in-office wound care. They do the ordering, they deal with the payers, they deal with multiple manufacturers, which is pretty cool, because then it really tells you what you can use on that patient and what you shouldn't use, and the margins there. Hey, if you're comfortable using a graft with $100 margin, so be it. If you think it's best for the patient, do it. Or you could use a graft with a little higher margin on it. And the Total Ancillary team is excellent in regards to educating the doctor, educating the staff, and it really does minimize your risk. Does it remove the risk completely? No, but it does minimize your risk dramatically in regard to not getting paid. Then total ancillary has payment terms, typical 45 days. There's all ways that they could work with either credit card or keep a credit card on file, direct bank account, whatever. But normally it's about a 45-day payment term after receiving the graft. So it does free up some cash flow, and patients are happy, and we see more revenue. So, and this is just a summary slide in regard to the software platform with the integration amongst all the divisions, because this is all within total ancillary. So they have the clinical portion where they have insight into, like we spoke about, benefits verification status, purchase order information, and invoice status. You can find out where everything is, and they'll keep you up to date with it. The billing structure, reimbursement, invoice numbers. You could track everything with them in terms of when the payment's going to come back. And then it takes over the accounting firm as well, where you process the manufacturer payment and tracking insurance claims, and well, it's really easy to track. So it's a no-brainer if you're doing wound care in the office. So, and and actionable analytics. You could look at real-time dispositions of all the orders, linked wound care claims to invoices. It makes it very organized. So you put 3 graphs on today, and you're like, who'd they go on? And it can get real messy in the office. I went through that. So this really made it a lot easier to do. And then certainly keeps an eye on the profitability. Again, we're all in a business, and we certainly have to make profits. And then it will review the graft reimbursement for payer. We said that, like, which one is better for you. And it will track any denials. So, and they don't have many denials because of this process. So, but sometimes with the doctor's documentation that is sent along with the invoice, sometimes there is a little discrepancy with that. But that's usually a learning curve. And like I said in the beginning, the documentation is pretty key in regard to minimizing your denials. So, and they got billing support. They'll review your claims prior to submitting to the insurance. You just fax over, or email. We would prefer if you just email the bill and claim over, and then they take care of the denials as well. So they'll support the denials in regard to, like, why it was denied. And the majority of the reason why they're denied is secondary to notes in the office, records, documentation for the use of the product. And like we mentioned, there's various payment methods you could use in regard to how you pay total ancillary. Again, a direct bank link, a credit card, a check, which requires a bank account, obviously, but all these things can be easily set up. So it's pretty seamless. And again, payment is due in the next, the next 45 days from the date of shipment. The customer will be automatically charged on day 45, and the shipment, from which is generated for the time of shipment. Customers will receive notification 5 days prior to the account being charged. So you'll get a notice, and if you have any questions on that, you could always then, find out exactly where the claim is. You can tell them you didn't get paid, and then you can move from there. So pretty much, so if this does interest you, which if you do wound care in your practice, I'm not sure why this wouldn't interest you, because it makes life so much easier. So you can see the next steps. I mean, basically, you do the webinar. They'll set up a webinar for you, a private webinar. They'll talk you through the whole thing in regard to account setup, the clinical profile, the standing orders. Once you start doing a couple of orders with them, everything is routine after that, and it flows after that. You get to know all the people, and you pretty much you're using the same 3 or 4 graphs on everybody anyway. So it's real easy after that. So and then they'll go through the manufacturer agreements, and they'll go through the billing training with you, and then you're ready to submit orders. So they'll teach you everything we're speaking about here in detail before you do anything. And you can certainly try a couple of patients and see what you think. Again, they could do both Medicare and commercial payers. Some commercial payers are a little more difficult, but again, the commercial payers also realize the importance of using these skin subs and keeping patients out of the hospital. So they all understand it. If Medicare understands it, the commercials will understand it as well. And it's surprising to me that a lot of the commercials have formularies with skin subs on it. It's just that it's a mystery. We don't know what these skin subs are. It's like hidden. You don't know, if a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida actually has a skin sub on there, and the majority of the time they do, because they do follow the Medicare guidelines, and they know the cost savings are there. So just being ignorant about it and saying the doc throw it in the hospital, they're really missing the boat. So they were losing a lot of money on that. So there's some additional services that Total Ancillary does as well. Injectable stuff, some DME and supplies through TaylorMed. Again, billing services. They do some pharmacy work, some surgical, and they're intimately involved with obviously TaylorMed GPO for your everyday stuff in the office, collagen powders, wound care stuff. So, and this is what the universal insurance verification request looks like. Simple form. I mean, the main thing is the demographics for the patient, name, and then the big thing obviously is the payer, who it is, name, location, address, and pretty much it's very self-explanatory. Diagnosis codes, what you're using it for, and that helps a lot, obviously. And make sure the key is really having your office notes pristine when you're billing these skin subs. Very important. So. And then you have a universal reorder form that's pretty self-explanatory too, in regard to any of the products you want to reorder. So it has a sample summary page, which is this is interesting when you look at it, because it goes through a couple of scenarios where the primary insurance and the secondary insurance covered it completely. And the number of units, product size, everything is on there. They tell you how much each unit costs, what the cost was, what your reimbursement was. The second one was, where the primary covered, the secondary didn't, and then the third one, no one covered it. But then again, this is what you'll receive before ordering the product. So you're kind of safe that, hey, let me see Mrs. Jones back next week. We got the approval, because they're pretty fast at doing this, to put the skin sub on. So it's all in the plan. And so basically, Total Ancillary Solution, great company. They help with the medical decision. You guys do the medical decision. There's business transparency. Everything is right there in the open, and basically outcomes are maximized. Because in my hands, I mean, they're definitely patients get better faster, and you have a happy patient. You're keeping them out of the hospital. But I've found in my practice a lot of times, sometimes the hospitals need it when you get these real nasty wounds and you debris in the OR. You get the infection under control, and then you bring them over to your office for the skin subs. That's been working. That's been working pretty well. So, and again, Total Ancillary does some other things. I mean, the DME and wound care dispensing, mainly through TaylorMed. There's some flowables they do, but tonight's discussion was more on skin subs. All right. I think we are good. If we take any questions.
So I'll start out, Warren. I mean, it was interesting. It's really, you're talking about value-based healthcare, which is great. What about the products that typically aren't covered, Warren? If you have a unique patient and you want to use a unique graft, how does TA help you figure out if you're going to get paid, if you're not going to get paid, how you can charge the patient, things like that?
It's a good question, because a lot of docs, like we try to use the same stuff. So, and you'll be surprised, a lot of the products that you're currently using, Total Ancillary can get to you. Now, if there's something out there that's unusual, certainly Total Ancillary will go to bat for you and pretty much let you know your options with it, in terms of cost, in terms of reimbursement. If it's on their formulary, can it be on their formulary? So they will go to bat for you, and they will basically give you the best options possible. You may want to do a substitute on that particular one that you're really keen on, and you may want to use it on the next patient where it will be covered. So, but they'll go fully to bat for you.
So you made an interesting comment, I think, that a lot of people don't really think about much, is that because of the battles we have with the payers nationally, that we're always fighting to get paid, to get better reimbursements, to get better fee schedules. And you certainly know this in South Florida very well. But,
Yes.
but that the payers actually want us to be non-facility based in our treatments. And that's value-based care again. But still, can you just elaborate on that just a little bit? It makes sense to me because that's what I do now for a living.
Yes.
But in my prior life, I hated the payers so much that I never figured that was what the real outcome was designed to be. So can you elaborate on that just a little bit? Because I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenging environment here, and certainly in South Florida with the payers. I mean, it's a constant battle. In fact, a really good example is my group. We do a lot of workers' compensation patients. So they go as far as the workers' compensation carriers. They go as far as, hey, Dr. Windram, if you're not going to do that ankle fracture at the surgical center, we're not sending you any more patients. If you bring that to the hospital, we're not sending you any more fractures. Because we know that ankle fracture is going to cost us $50K in the hospital, and it's going to cost $12K at the surgical center. So they've evolved where they look at where their big hits come from. And if we can do these patients outpatient, they know for a fact that they're going to save a lot of money. So they go to the point where they actually don't even refer you those patients if you're going to bring it to a primary facility that's going to be very expensive. So, it's very similar with wound care. Medicare identifies this. And if you look at all the Medicare guidelines, if they identify this as a good treatment modalities for these difficult wounds to heal, I mean, you're ahead of the game right there because they realize this. And so the commercial insurances are following suit with it. So I think it's a really important concept to grasp, because with value-based medicine, like Mike indicated, that they're really looking at cost. So, and particularly in this environment down here in South Florida, this is a daily thing on my agenda. So by doing these skin subs in the office, you may feel like, wow, it's a $1,200 graft, it's a $2,000 graft, a $3,000 graft, but that's only a drop in the bucket when you compare to sending that patient to the ER across the street from your office and admit the patient. So they're beginning to realize that as well. So good point.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people don't. If we get the commercial payers to start to think about it a little bit more prospectively, as well as the innovation people at CMS, but it could be difficult too. But is there any area you've had particular difficulties with TA? And I'm not trying to throw TA under the bus here at all. I'm just saying I think they've done a really good job of trying to help vet, like you had noted, what's covered, what's not covered. Maybe you need a substitute. Is there any area that's been more challenging? No, the flowables have had their setbacks recently with FDA changes, but how does that function within TA, and how do you use them, or if you use the flowables more?
Well, I mean, the flowables, again, the flowable is really indicated under the Medicare guidelines. Amniotic flowable can be used for wound care. The primary indication was wound care, diabetic wounds. And as you know, recently we've been using it elsewhere. We've been using it in the operating room for years. But in the operating room, we don't care about cost, right? But when we start using it in the office setting, for more chronic conditions, arthritis, Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, more of the chronic cases, we found that that coverage is there for it, but there's been some changes in Medicare recently in regard to identifying an amniotic injectable outside of the realm of wound care. So kind of like a holding pattern with the flowables until things get sorted out. It's relatively new, and then Medicare is doing their due diligence on it. I mean, we all know. I mean, if everyone uses it, but the products work awesome. They're great, but I just think a little more time is needed for them to get on board with that, and particularly outside of wound care. All right, if you can use it outside of wound care, that's a different story. But if you use it within wound care, it's still usable.
How long does it usually take total ancillary to get you an answer that you need more, and so you can proceed?
It's usually pretty quick. I mean, because they know you're seeing the patient. Once you get the accurate information to them, it's usually within 24 to 48 hours, they're back to you in regard to, like, what would you do with this patient? Because they know you have a patient with a wound and you want to schedule that patient within a few days to put the graft on. You
I was just
can't
going to
wait
ask
a
you, so
month.
how do you just tell the patients you'll be back in touch with them? How does it logistically work in your clinic? I'm just trying to figure out how to give the people on the call here a flow plan for, like,
Yeah,
this
I mean,
is when I see them on Monday, this is my approach.
yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, I don't know about your practice, but most of my wounds are usually coming in from consultants, consultations from the hospital. Usually not walking in, like the plantar fasciitis patient. So if I see the patient in the hospital and I do a mechanical debridement on the patient in the operating room, get the patient stable, like I said, then I bring them to the office. And even before they come to the office, I know they're coming. I'm getting the information over to TA to get working on the products, because it's a complete disaster sending these patients home on home health. You'd rather not do anything. Home health agencies down here are horrible. So once the patient's identified, once you identify the patient, and certainly your documentation has to support this, and certainly also indicate that the patient has had 30 days of conservative care. Once that's fully documented, then you're ready to roll with the skin sub, and you more or less fill out the form, get all the demographics over to TA, and they take over from there. So once you get into the cycle with it, and once you learn the process, it's pretty simple. And you'll learn. I mean, because most doctors have a limited number of payers they see, and you'll learn who pays, who gets covered and who doesn't get covered. But like you said, Mike, the commercials are catching on little by little. I mean, they're foolish not to. I mean, they deny the skin graft. I think at the hospital it costs 100 times more. It makes no sense. So, but they are catching on with it. So.
How does it work with Medicaid, Warren? I mean, I know it varies from state to state, and it's difficult. Maybe in Alabama, but it's not so bad in California or whatever. But does TA deal with Medicaid as well, or every payer?
I mean, I don't. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the payer is; they'll deal with it. But Medicaid, I don't see a whole lot of Medicaid in my clinic, so I don't really do much with that. But for all the other payers, I mean, I send it to TA and let them do their thing.
And then we're inundated with it in Massachusetts. That's why I wondered, because with the ACA being so popular, say in the Northeast, and so the Medicaid numbers are way up here, of even managed Medicaid. So I was just kind of curious. But TA handles the plan regardless. They'll let you.
Correct. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the plan is. Let them sort that out. Exactly. Because don't forget, they're based on the manufacturer's product and what this secret formulary is that some of these payers have. Most of them have skin subs on their formulary. It's just that you don't know what they are.
So I don't want to advocate for any particular product, but are there 2 or 3 that you find are the easiest?
I don't know. I mean, it really depends. It depends on the payer. I mean, it's not the product. It's more the payer. It's not really the product. It's the payer. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really the payer, because if it's great. If you have a great payer, they'll send you 3 choices, and being the doc, you pick what you want. Sometimes I don't pick the one that's the biggest profit, because I don't like the product. I'd rather do the one in the middle, because I'm familiar with it and I'm comfortable with it. So it's really up to the doc to decide what he wants.
Does TA also let you know what the patient's co-payment will be depending on the plans? They do. Okay.
Yes. You saw in the summary form they had the if the secondary covers it, some of the Medicare secondaries cover it, as opposed to if they're responsible for a certain percentage. Yeah, they'll let you know that. Yeah.
Excellent. Ira, are you still hanging around there? That's all the questions I had.
Yeah, Ira's right here.
I didn't realize you guys were in the same facility until he dropped me a note, and then I said, "That's the magic of television."
So this is a Taylor Tuesday first. Speaker and moderator at the same time. So no, I was listening to everything, and I think Warren covered it and has a really good perspective. I think that, Mike, one of the things you asked when you asked questions about the Medicaid. I think that, Warren was pretty spot on with his answer. But what I will tell you is that I'm not so much worried about the Medicaid. I think a lot of the reps are very knowledgeable about which products are covered. I see more of the problems with the Medicare Advantage plans. I see that the Medicare Advantage plans are not playing the ball game the correct way. And, we know, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, Medicare publishes a list of what they would consider ASP products versus non-ASP products. And what that means is that there's some fixed prices that are set that Medicare allows versus other products that may reimburse at different levels. And what happens is a lot of times Medicare is letting products get used so that they get clinical data to see if those products are effective. You might have even heard that sometimes products get put on pass-through in facilities. And so this is Medicare's way of evaluating and looking at the products. And at some point, they may decide that they determine that product may or may not be covered based on the clinical documentation that is published on that product. Is that a correct statement? Correct. And I think, Mike, that the whole big take-home message on all of this is, and you and Warren, Warren particularly hit on it earlier. I do believe that wound care, at least in my career, and Mike, I know in your career, when we started seeing wounds, everything was driven to the wound care center. And what happened was at the wound care center, this is my opinion, hyperbarics was abused. It was taken advantage of. It wasn't as clinically efficacious as everybody thought it was going to be. And it started coming back towards the clinics. The guidelines were conservative care being documented prior to the implementation of these advanced cellular tissue products. Again, Warren, said it earlier, a lot of reps come into the office and they love to use these products in the OR because a lot of times people were getting paid regardless. The reps were loving it because, but the reality is what I'm also seeing now, which is very interesting, Mike, you may be seeing it in your clinics. If a doctor used to be, when a physician performed a surgical service in the operating room, regardless of whether the products were covered, and it could be anything. It could have been a bone graft. It could have been anything. The physicians got paid for surgical services that they were provided.
Right
now, if you do not use a product, even if it's on the formulary, a lot of these hospitals have very stringent vetting processes. It's the VAC committee? The VAC committee. And so what happened is they have very, very efficient and thorough VAC committees that they approve for utilization in the facility. But what I have recently started seeing from a reimbursement side, even if a product has been approved for the facility, but it is not on that product is not on the insurance company's formulary.
Right.
We now are not getting reimbursed for our physician services in conjunction with the hospital not getting reimbursed. And I've even had friends who recently had spinal surgery where the doctor used injectable amniotic tissue over the fusion site. And because the product wasn't approved, the whole procedure wasn't paid for. And the patient didn't even know that the doctor was going to use it. And the patients, not only is the hospital not getting paid, not only is the physician not getting paid for the physician services, but now the patient is being held liable.
Well, so we saw that Ira with the first MTP implants when
correct.
Aetna and Cigna tried to play games of pulling them out and then putting them back in. Yes.
So that's where I think a company like Total Ancillary, who builds up their knowledge base on these products, at least is going to be helpful in that arena. Look, Mike, you have 160 doctors working for you. We have to use every tool in the toolbook and every tool in our toolbox, not toolbook, to help most importantly, our patients get better, but that our physicians get paid for the services that they provide, right, and not intimidate the physicians from providing that care. I mean, look, maybe I'm going to say something, this is my opinion. We have seen through medicine inordinate amount of audits for different areas when Medicare has tried to intimidate and scare physicians into providing quality care. We've seen it with diabetic shoes. We're seeing it now with custom AFOs and DME, with same and similar. We're seeing that with even with our DME surgical dressings. I mean, Medicare has made it very clear that you have to follow the product guidelines for conservative care if you don't have an LCD policy. Conservative care is now being questioned, even though it's what they're telling you that you need to do. So I think that we need all the help we can get in this arena, and I look at Total Ancillary as a company that provides some of those tools. I don't know.
Yep. Oh, Warren, I can't hear you.
I think as Total Ancillary grows, I think you really do see, where they get much more data, they get to deal with more manufacturers, more payers. I think they're going to really improve what we need improved on, in terms of getting payers to pay. And I think having a company like Total Ancillary, in place, I think they really do a good job. But they constantly keep growing in regard to their data bank and their expertise.
And I will tell you, Mike, one of the interesting things is, all of the individual companies do a good job at educating physicians on what needs to be documented. And I think that Total Ancillary was originally developed as a tool really for managing it. Obviously, they've gotten into the distribution space as well. But I also think that they're providing as good or better information that even the individual vendors are supplying. They're offering the similar supports on having a full coding and reimbursement department to help you with your claims. They've hired people to help do auditing. So I think the more tools we have out there with any company that we're using in what I consider is the wild, wild west in wound care, it's helpful for all of us.
Agreed.
Well, we don't always have to run till the full hour. I think that it's been a good topic to discuss. We've had a good centered crowd that has stayed on and listened to what we had to say. Mike, I see that there was one question in the box. Did you get to that question?
I did not. And
okay. And I think one of our colleagues made a comment, and I think that the comment
really was just that, we do have to care about the costs in the hospital as well. And that, I think, I don't think Warren was saying, we don't necessarily care. It's just that we have to care about it. And I think your point about that as well is that, I think we have to think about what the hospital, based on what you even said earlier. So,
right. I think the misconception, and I'm not speaking, although Warren is sitting here next to me and he could probably defend himself, I think that for the most part, many physicians are based on the old mindset of the global payments and that everything is globally there. And the reason why we've provided some of these services in the hospitals, and you know, one, we didn't do. There are a lot of doctors who don't do them in their practice because you know what? They don't want to take the risk. They do not want to take the risk, and they're willing to let the hospital take the risk because they want to do the right thing for the patient. So I think that you could look at it a variety of different ways. I don't think there was any intent to think that because I agree, hospitals can't afford to continue to lose money either, and I think that this whole look, I have never really used amniotic products on surgical fusions when I was practicing, unless the patient had a lot of comorbidities, a bad smoker, diabetes. But I mean, I see that routinely now. I mean, I see routinely that physicians are using products on these patients, on 25-year-old healthy people. So again, I think that the intent is not. I think the comment came out definitely the way it came out, but I don't think that's what the intention was. I think that we as physicians have been fighting through global period reimbursement, patient coverage, and I agree 100% that hospitals can't continue to lose money, and that's why we're actually seeing that if the products are not on the fee schedules and are not covered by those companies, then they're not being paid, and the physician is not being paid either.
Correct. I mean, the comment was more of a traditional medicine from, like Ira pointed out, from somebody older practitioners, that whatever we did in the hospital it was covered years back. But today things are a lot different. Like they're vetting hardware for doing simple surgeries, as well as vetting biologics and skin substitutes. So your hospital is not going to allow you to use whatever you want. You got to use what's on the formulary and also use what they're going to get paid on. So the comment was made basically from, we're talking about in the past when they, basically at the hospital, you didn't really care what their bottom line was. But obviously today it's a totally different story. And the VATS committees in the hospital, in the hospital setting, they make this aware. We're aware of this daily. When we book cases, my surgical scheduler is constantly, bombarded with, hey, you can't use Paragon, you got to use Stryker. So we see it on that level. So the comment, was basically based on more of a traditional approach.
So anyway, Barbara, there's a great point. Thank you for bringing it up. I see my computer is ready to die. It's at 8:59. Taylor first, two doctors in the same room, presenter and moderator. Had a chance to be with my friend Dr. King. Next week is Taylor Tuesday. Some guy named Ira Kraus is going to be speaking on PadNet evolution over the years. I've been a big supporter and user of PadNet for vascular testing. I think both Mike and I spent our careers treating the patients who had non-healing diabetic foot wounds, and I will tell you that just seeing how the evolution of doing vascular testing on patients has changed in my 30 years in practice, I think is really exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next week. I really appreciate everybody for joining us tonight, and have a great couple of weeks off. Mikey, I'll speak to you this week. I'll see you in Tennessee at the Tennessee meeting. And for those of you who are going to be at the Tennessee Podiatric Medical Association, please come by and see me and the team at the Taylor Medical booth. Have a wonderful evening and have a great night. Bye, everybody.
See y'all.